Hi, and welcome back to another episode of That's Odd TV, the place where we talk about things that are quirky, unusual, the kind of stuff other people don't want to talk about. I'm Lynn Garthwaite, and I'm here with my intrepid co-host, Nadia Giordana. Hi, Nadia.
Hi, Lynn.
Good to see you.
I'm going to have to look up intrepid to make sure I'm happy with that word.
You're good to go. So,
Right.
I want to start off by just talking about how lucky we are. Here we are in this nice studio. We've got a nice show. We actually have about a dozen gnomes and elves behind the scenes that work hard for us, doing the lighting and the set and the sound. And the hair and makeup gnome is just like incredible. And behind us we have Chaos and Odd Job watching our back. I mean, literally watching our back. So we're very lucky people. And luck happens to be our theme today. We're going to be talking about people who are lucky for a variety of reasons. Some of them are lucky because they survived some horrific thing. That's what makes them lucky. Some are lucky because just by pure dumb luck, something dropped in their lap. And so we're going to cover a few interesting characters who may qualify for the luckiest people in the world. So I'll pass it off to you. Who do you have?
All right. Well, I was, one of the things I was looking up is people, because don't we all just daydream about winning the lottery?
Yes.
If you don't, there's something wrong with you. But a lot of people have won the lottery, and several people, this is where I'm starting out, several people have won the lottery multiple times.
Boy, what are the odds of that?
You know, some of them have won millions multiple times. Some of them have won 200,000 here, 100,000 there, 500,000 here. In fact, the first person on my list is Joan Ginther, and she refuses to grant interviews, so people don't know much about her. But she's probably one of the luckiest people alive. She's won the lottery at least 3 times, and she's one of the ones, 100,000 here, 200,000 there. Let's see. 20 million total in different chunks. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's actually more than 3 times. They can't even keep track of how many times she's won the lottery, and she's not cheating.
Wow, I mean, she doesn't work for the lottery board? She isn't behind the scenes pulling numbers?
Like that.
This is just of course,
lucky.
Just dumb luck. Good for her. Well, I've got a guy whose luck is from a different kind of thing. His name is Frane, and he's a Croatian man. He's actually had near-death experiences throughout his entire life and probably set a record for it. So way back when he was very young, he was on a train that happened to derail, ended up in a river. He recalls somebody, he doesn't know who it was, pulling him from the river, and he was able to get away with just, I think it was a broken arm and hypothermia. But 17 people drowned in that. So, I mean, it was a serious accident. And then the very next year, he was taking his first plane trip. And now this goes back, this would have been about in the 1960s. Because of a malfunction, the door of the plane blew off, pulled him out. He ended up landing in a haystack and survived with just a couple of cuts and bruises, literally. But 49 people in that plane died because the plane, of course, once that door blew out, that plane ended up crashing. So that happened. He was also then, a couple of years later, he was in a bus that skidded off the road and into a river. He survived that. 4 people died in that one. He swam to shore, but not too many injuries. After that, in subsequent years, he was in 2 car fires. He was hit by a bus. He dodged a head-on collision with a United Nations truck, of all things. And then in that case, he swerved and hit a guardrail. But so, I mean, that's just mind-boggling that one person could survive and have that many incidents happen. But his story ends well. He ended up with some good luck. Late in his life, he was about 73. He won a lottery. It was equivalent to $1 million in American dollars. He was at the time married to his 5th wife, and I was thinking about this. I thought the first 4 probably kind of saw what happened to people who were in his orbit, and at different times fled. But he was married to his 5th wife, and they did enjoy the $1 million. They bought a couple of houses and a boat, and then they did donate a bunch to family and friends and things. So, and I checked. As far as I know, he's still alive, and he'd be 92 now. So that's a lot.
I'm still stuck on being blown out of an airplane and landing in a haystack.
Yes.
That's a cartoon.
I know. That's something you'd see on the Roadrunner or something. So, yeah.
I think I have seen that.
Probably.
Well, I have some other people that have won lots of money, but piggybacking on the story you just told, I have a personal story. I was out at a resort one time way back many years ago, and they had this little dinghy-sized sailboat.
Okay.
And my then husband and I decided to rent said sailboat and go out. And it was late in the season. It was September, so no one else was out on the lake.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and we go out, and everything seems to be fine, and we wore our life jackets, but we wanted to take pictures of each other.
Okay.
And so I didn't want the life jacket in my picture, mistake number one. So I took the life jacket off, and as the boat it was wavy and choppy, and as the boat would kind of come around and start to catch the edge of a wave, you know, the sailboat's tip,
Yeah.
I would quick roll back over to the other side because I was scared. And he said, "Oh, just relax, don't be so nervous."
Oh, what could happen?
what could go wrong? And so sure enough, the next time we tipped like that, I thought, well, I'm just going to sit right here. And that time it was too far. I should have gone to the other side. Caught the water, filled up instantly, and we're tossed into the water, no life jacket.
Right.
Sailboat rolls over, nothing but a smooth hull, and no one else on the lake. I don't swim.
Oh, dear.
My husband
gets
swam.
worse.
My life jacket didn't fall out. It caught on the boards underneath, so it's underneath. He dove. He just had me just lay over the back. I couldn't get up on it and just not move while he dove to try to get my life jacket, which didn't work. Luck would have it,
there you go.
a little old lady and a man, probably her husband, were sitting on their porch on this cool summer day or early fall, and saw the boat go over and said, "Honey, I think you should call somebody. I think you should run out there. Those people look like they're in trouble."
Yeah, really?
And it was like a couple of miles out to the middle of the lake, but we were saved. Of course, I'm still here, so.
Guess that, but happy ending. So.
Yeah, back to you.
Yeah, okay, well, I want to talk about a guy named Michaelpierre. Okay, Michaelpierre survived an exploding toilet. Now, luckily he was not on it, but what happened is he lived in an apartment complex in Brooklyn, New York, and the apartment had told everybody they were going to turn off the water to the building that day because there was something about a backflow prevention valve that needed fixing or whatever. So everybody knew the water had been turned off, and then later on it was turned back on again. So Michaelpierre thought, I'm going to go and just test my toilet just to see, you know, if it flushes. So not on it, but just reaching across, he went to flush the toilet. Well, unknown to him, like water bubbles or air bubbles had
methane
gotten into the system somehow. And he just remembered a loud boom and then porcelain flying everywhere.
Oh, gee, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it was incredible. So firefighters were called in because of an explosion. So they found him lying on the floor. He'd been knocked unconscious. He was bleeding everywhere. He was very lucky that it didn't kill him, but he had like 30 stitches needed in his face, arms, legs, the whole bit. He says, he was very lucky he wasn't sitting on it. That would have been awful. But to this day, he is afraid. Every time he sits on the toilet, he said, he's afraid of what might happen. And so now what he does, and he was lucky, he posed for a picture of this. He will tie a rope to his to the flusher mechanism, and every time he uses the toilet, he then leaves the room and pulls on a rope to flush his toilet.
Pre-flush.
It's and this has been a few years, and he still has that fear.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, so I know. So good old Michaelpierre, good for him, and thanks for posing for a picture.
I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Well, I've got also Melvin Wilson.
Love the name.
And he's been given the nickname Mr. Luck.
Okay.
And that was from the people that were close to him when he started pulling in big lottery wins, let's see how many. He won also 3 different times. All I want is one.
I know, really.
And I don't want the big one. I do not want $1 billion.
Right. Because it ruins families.
Yeah, people kill people for that kind of money.
And kidnap children, yes.
No, I only want a little win like he did. He won 3 different wins, and he won $2 million. Now, I think that's really lucky.
Yes.
That's really lucky. You're set for the rest of your life. You know you're not going to be in the worst nursing home in town. You can probably pick a good one.
Right. And yeah, you'll live comfortably, take a couple vacations.
Yeah, I don't think, doesn't sound like he was married, so I think that's a pretty lucky man.
Maybe people started chasing him afterwards and
I'm sure.
caught him. So, you know, a lot of times when people talk about or think about horrific accidents, the idea of parachuting comes to mind. Like, what if the parachute doesn't open? So, of course, I've got a story about that for people who want to test gravity and want to do something beyond, like, falling out of a chair. So this guy, he's a New Zealander. His name is Michael Holmes. He is actually a skydiving instructor. So he knows all the ins and outs. He knows what happens and what could happen. And in this particular case, both of his parachutes did not open properly. One, I think it sounds like opened slightly. The other one didn't open at all.
Do they always have to? Do you know?
I think so. There's a backup. Okay. Yep, as far as I know. That's as much as I know about it. So the entire thing is on YouTube because he was recording as he fell, and there's a lot of spinning going on around.
I remember when that happened.
Well, and maybe there's more than one, but yeah, this one is pretty horrific. And when you watch the YouTube, you could see as he's getting closer, he's spinning. He's kind of close to a shoreline, so there's water here and shore there, and I'm sure he was trying to do whatever he could to land in the water because he had a better chance of survival. He did not, but he did land in a blackberry bush. Now, so kind of harkens back to the haystack incident.
Yeah.
But he landed in a blackberry bush and survived. He had just had a broken ankle and a collapsed lung, which are serious, but I mean, he was falling at, they said, 70 miles per hour. So pretty bizarre, pretty lucky.
You know, to keep some form of conscience, to have any clarity of thought coming down without just screaming your bloody head off. I don't
Well, and you know what? I didn't have the sound on YouTube. Maybe he was. Maybe that's exactly what he was doing.
I laugh, but that would be, the screaming would be too much.
Well, we wouldn't want to show that to children.
That's a very, very lucky guy.
Yes, yeah.
Well, let's see. Well, I think I'll look at a couple people what they've done since they won big lottery things. And it's interesting because people always say, and I do say this, and I think I would stick with it pretty good. I don't think I changed my life a lot, and a lot of people don't. But John and Lisa Robinson, they won the Powerball. They won a third of $1.5 billion. That's too much money. That's too much money. And that was in January of 2016. They do not live the same life they lived before. They have a multi-million-dollar home. Who wouldn't?
Yeah,
I guess.
I'd have a better home.
Oh, it'd be a lot to manage, but they have a multi-million-dollar home complete with, I don't know why they even mention a home theater. Doesn't everybody have a home theater of one form or another? And a private lake.
Oh, boy.
But other than that, they kept out of the headlines. They keep a low profile. They don't, another one that doesn't do interviews and just stays out of sight, which I think I would do too. I would try not to have to come forward, but that depends on the state you live in.
Right, I understand
whether you can be anonymous or whether you have to come forward for at least a couple of pictures in an interview.
Yeah, which would be really tough because once people ID you, then they're all on you. And some of them with good intentions. It might be charitable foundations and things that are after you. But there's a certain point where it would get crazy.
Extra relatives?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they're all
I can think of all kinds of extra relatives that would show up.
people you haven't talked to in years. And I think there are a lot of stories, too, of how families have been damaged because now there's infighting over who gets what and things like that. And so there's a lot of reasons maybe to not want that kind of. But like you said, the smaller amounts, the manageable, the million or two or whatever were.
There was one person, and I don't know the name, and I don't have it in here, but I remember reading it a while back and thought, the poor guy. But his wife did try to, or was it his, they were divorced or separated, or there was some reason, a super close relative, and it was a man and it was a female. Some reason she tried to kill him for the money, to inherit the money.
I'm not totally surprised about that. I mean, yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, coming back to odd incidents, I've got Roy Sullivan, a U.S. park ranger. He unfortunately was struck by lightning 7 times during his life. And he believes that when he was a child was the first one. His memory is that the first one was then. But everyone was a different incident, so it wasn't like 7 times in one big storm. And there were 35 years between the first and the 7th strike. So he did get knocked out several times. He was never seriously injured. He had kind of those, like hair singeing kind of things. And he had some that he felt were worse than others, but he survived them all. He was, like I said, a park ranger, so he was out there all the time and probably warning other people about lightning coming in. That was his thing. But the sad thing is that he ended up at the age of, it was in 1983, he ended up killing himself with a gunshot wound to the head. And it made me wonder, I mean, I don't want to joke about it, but I wondered if maybe there was some weather forecast coming in about a big storm and he thought, I'm not doing this again.
I'm not trying that again.
And possibly the damage done, even though it wasn't something you could see, he may have had traumatic brain injuries all that time.
That came into my mind, is there could have been some brain injury that no one ever saw or ever
it wasn't diagnosed, and possibly some depression along with that. But 7 times struck by lightning, so that's pretty amazing.
Boy, that's a lot. I do, just before my mother passed a year or so ago, she told me she was struck by lightning when she was a child.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Hiding under a big tree in a rainstorm.
The big
in a field.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Obviously, she survived it. Did she have any serious injuries?
No serious injuries, just blew her 20 feet. And
oh, my goodness.
When you're 7 or so years old, you can bounce and roll.
Yeah, true. Yeah. You got a lot. Yeah. Your bones are
their
less
bones
likely
are
to break.
Soft. Yeah. So let's see. Let's talk about another family that won the lottery. And where are they now? There's a family called Marvin and May Acosta. Here's another one, $333 billion. Again, too much money. $327 million they won. And they stayed quiet before claiming their jackpot, and they've kept up radio silence ever since.
Very smart.
Scammers have tried to take advantage of their charity plans, so that someone says here, we can only assume that the Acostas have opted to keep their philanthropy private. So they mentioned that early on they were going to do some philanthropic things, and scammers just, they just glom on to people.
Yeah. And I think it's probably good if at the time you win something like that, if you announce we have already decided who we're giving to, who and what organization and stuff, so don't contact us.
And don't people usually visit a lawyer and see what and how they should come forward?
Yeah.
If it was a big one, I think I might do that.
Absolutely, because I think it has to be put in trust and all those kind of things. And I've thought that, when, as you said, that we all think about what we would do, I thought it'd be kind of cool to divide up portions, and for each of your close family members say, here's this, give them money for them to live on it, or those kind of fun things. But then also, here's something for your philanthropy. You're going to get, like, say, $100,000, just to use a round number. You pick and choose, your favorite charities, whatever, and then and we'll send a check to them.
I never thought of that. That's a good idea.
Because that would spread it out too beyond your own personal contacts or interests.
Yeah, I do daydream at different times about taking care of the family. How much would I put here? Would it be a trust? Who gets this? Who gets that? Oh, maybe this person should get monthly instead of a big lump sum, just to keep them on the straight and narrow. Things like that.
And you don't want the younger generation to be disincentivized to work or things like that.
That's the other thing.
Career. Yeah.
You don't want to make it too easy, but you don't need it all.
Right. Oh yeah, you can't spend all that. So my other case about a good luck, it involves a famous person, the Beatle George Harrison.
Oh, really?
So he and his wife, and this was kind of late in his life, his wife Olivia, they were at home and somebody broke into the house. Now, most celebrities have a pretty good security system, so I'm not exactly sure how this happened, but he came in with a knife. he ended up stabbing George Harrison 2 times. I never remember reading about that. And maybe the injuries were superficial and not a big deal. But then, and he was screaming at them the whole time. And his thing was he thought that they were like witches and they were evil and that kind of thing. He thought he was on a mission from God to kill George Harrison. So, but then when Harrison himself was kind of disabled, he went after the wife Olivia, and he was strangling her with a cord at the time that police arrived. So there probably was an alarm system, maybe a silent alarm, and so the guy was taken into custody. Now he was ruled incompetent because of insanity, whatever, and he was actually released in 2002.
So he's the lucky
one. So he's out. But this all happened just 2 years 2 years before George Harrison himself died of cancer. So this was towards the end of his life.
Towards the end, but I never heard that story.
I didn't either. Yeah. So, and maybe they keep those things under wrap because sometimes they're copycats and people get an idea of their own and whatever. But so there's our celebrity one.
Yeah, but you wonder, you sure do hope they got that other guy some help, because if he's going to be out and about, he could pick another target.
Well, yeah, if he was in some kind of an institution, he was getting help, but that doesn't always cure them.
Scary.
I know.
But
let's keep our distance from him.
Yeah, you think about that, whatever gets people to that point.
Yeah.
Let's see, where are they now? I'll flip over here.
Yeah, it is interesting to find out what people do with it. And usually when they're interviewed, they give an indication, and usually charitable things are top of the list.
A lot. And here's one. This looks like this might have been, and again, another half or a third, $758 million Powerball, and it looks like Mavis Wanzik won $336 million.
Wow.
That seems to be a consistent thing, about between $300,000 and $400,000. And she quit her job, retreated from public eye, big surprise. Yeah. And when she claimed her prize, so she did that all before she claimed her prize. And she said she wanted to be alone and figure it out what she was going to do next, and never a word from her ever since. So she was pretty much allowed to be quiet,
interesting,
and private and personal,
and as it should be. I mean, these people didn't ask for the spotlight, although you kind of know what it's like.
I like my phone number. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to, because it's such an easy phone number to remember.
Why don't you say it out loud? It tells no. I get what you mean. You'd have to, you probably would almost certainly move.
Yeah,
and you'd have the finances to do it. But I enjoy the stories where a whole group of people, like coworkers, win and then they split it. That seems really sweet.
There is one group like that called themselves, I won't look for it in here because it's just a little brief sentence. They called themselves the Ocean's 16.
Okay.
A kind of a play off
Ocean 11
the movies.
Yeah.
And they were all survivors of a hurricane.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
no, that's sweet.
16 people, and they shared a huge lottery win.
That's nice. Then that feels better, because when it's divided up between a large group, it doesn't feel like somebody got away with just the billions kind of thing. But and then there's always that story about one person who every month had put the money in and that month decided not to. But if I were in that group, I think I would include that person anyway, unless they were a creep about it.
I think I would.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's always someone in the group that says letter of the law. And
I know.
You can't argue with that either.
The legal things. Although then maybe, depending on the amount, I might help divide some of mine up with that. So, look at what nice people we are.
I think if I was in that group, it would depend on how that person, if that person says, I'm out now for good.
Right. That's different. Right.
Maybe not necessarily, I'm out for this week.
Right.
What, $1? You can't afford $1.
Exactly. Or if they were,
put it in.
If they happen to be sick on the day that everybody put in, that's a different story too.
That's even easier.
Let
them have part of the
And again,
jackpot.
assuming everybody got along and things like that.
That must have happened somewhere along the line.
But definitely consult an attorney. I mean, there seems to be no question that has to happen, because, just for tax purposes, you need to know how to handle it, where to put it, what kind of trusts to set up.
And here's the thing I've always thought of, and this is why I never do those. I don't ever go into one of those group things, at least not if it's one person that handles everything. They buy the ticket, and they're
They're the only
Who's
ones
to
that
say
see
they
it.
wouldn't just run with the ticket?
I know.
if it
Well,
happened?
if all of a sudden they quit their job and turn out rich, you kind of can guess what might have happened.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to be the person buying the tickets for a group because I do also buy my own tickets.
Yes.
I was asked once, at least once, maybe twice, and I said, no, I buy my own tickets unless we can settle which ticket is which and
Right.
who holds that, so that if my ticket wins, sorry, I'm not splitting it with the group
Right,
because
and-
we have a group thing.
Right, and then they'd be suspicious of you if suddenly you said, "Oh, but it was my personal ticket."
But
Yeah.
I'd feel guilty.
I know.
I'd feel totally guilty as if I'd done something
You'd feel
wrong.
guilty while you were in the Bahamas and and sunning on the beach and things like that. Yeah, it'd be awful. So, well, you know what? Luck is one of those things that you can't figure out when it's going to hit. So, just do the best. Just live your life the way you can and hope for the best.
Fun. Yeah, I feel like a pretty lucky person, and it looks like we've run out of time. So, thank you all for watching today, and let's hope this day is your lucky day.
Bye bye.